Azmyl Yunor. I'm a Malaysian singer-songwriter slash musician. I'm also an academic in the field of film, media, and popular music and cultural studies. So I've been doing this since I started off informally as a student. I was studying Australia in the late 90s. I started out as a busker, but of course in college I discovered being in a band. I never played with anyone before in a band. Went to college, met friends, and this was in a town that's 30-40 kilometers away from my place where I live, so I had to commute every day. So this was a new world for me. But of course I always was into bands. I grew up in the 90s. I was 14 when Nirvana broke with Smells Like Teen Spirit, and that entire cultural period was very interesting, and it felt that you could finally be in a band. And I was also learning a bit of music, and I had picked up the guitar when I was 17. Never seriously thought about being a musician, never thought I could do it. Then I discovered the music underground. I read about punk and all this stuff, the bands, the whole history, then discovered singer-songwriters like Bob Dylan, Tom Waits, and then later on discovering the more regional artists like Iwan Fals, and all these different singers, and it was very empowering. So when I was a student overseas, I couldn't get a part-time job, but I was already writing songs. I was quite depressed because I had to be away from my band, my friends, because they were still in Malaysia. Some of them went to other countries. That's the story if you come from a middle class background and opportunity to study abroad comes and you take it. So I was in a small town in Australia called Perth, hardly the most exciting place to be in. And I think because of that lack of excitement, that lack of excitement really focused me inwards. And I started being very introspective, writing a lot of songs, just really writing for myself, but of course dreaming that this song's gonna be with my band. And that wasn't the case because the band never sort of reformed. So then I was looking for a part-time job. Nobody wanted to give me any. Nobody got back to me. I was walking around town once, and there's these buskers that I saw in Perth City. And this was again the late 90s. Australia wasn't going through its mining boom yet. It was a very sleepy town. And looking at these buskers, I felt, hey, for once I felt like I can do better than them. So I applied for a permit and started busking, and that was it. I think that was my school where I learned about performing arts, was on the streets. Sounds a bit romantic, but it was a learning curve. So when you're busking, you play songs to grab people's attention, and you learn how to entertain, to perform, to put a performance face on. So that's how I started off, and the rest, I was there for 3 years plus, and I was a busker throughout that. And that was the only period you could call me a busker because I was doing it very often, and I was earning, and it was good money, better than if I washed dishes, So I always joke about this. I'm saying, like, I like to thank all those the restaurants, the shops, whatever, that rejected my application to work part-time, because if they accepted me, then I wouldn't be busking, probably. So that was how from there on, because friends who were in the band in Malaysia introduced me to the underground scene guys back home in Malaysia. I discovered the DIY punk ethos, a do-it-yourself sort of attitude, and really a philosophy, and that really changed everything for me. And it was very empowering. I started making my own cassettes, writing songs, designing my own album covers, sending it back to Malaysia, just sharing it with friends, really. And that was it. When I came back at the turn of the new millennium, that was in 2000, that's when I started to get other bands, meeting friends, and started playing in the scene. So that was my start. I was never a mainstream musician. When I was once introduced to this subterranean, this subculture, and it was more exciting and more meaningful for me because I had my own principles that slowly built into my worldview throughout those years. So that's how I became a musician. 'Cause, I mean, I became a musician, singer-songwriter, primarily because I had songs and I had friends play bands. I know where to play and meet people, and that's it, really. It wasn't a career move. I didn't even know the term singer-songwriter. I thought I was just a solo artist. But yeah, I started releasing more cassettes, started just really playing every show's gigs, and it was a very interesting time, the early 2000s in Malaysia, because there was no independent filmmaking scene yet. The underground was primarily the main thing. You didn't have indie music yet. It wasn't the big thing yet. People weren't thinking about in really entrepreneurial spirit of making music. You played because you loved and you network. So it was a very healthy cross-pollination between the visual arts, the filmmakers, the musicians, the theater people, the dance, whatever it may be. So it was very bustling. So I would be playing at some gallery opening, while also later on playing at the underground gig, and maybe playing a few songs at the opening of a screening of a film fest. So that was exciting. People weren't in their little silos, and that really. And I started organizing and meeting other friends and doing a singer-songwriter showcase and really trying to make it a bit more serious and getting funding. And that was quite important turn. I think that was around about the time when you got picked out, saying like, hey, these guys are doing things. You're a mover, you're a leader. I suppose so. So it wasn't the ulterior motive to be a leader, but you lead you lead because nobody's leading you. So that's how you start off. Um, and yeah, everybody was making it for themselves and started understanding how things work, how to produce albums, how to network yourself around. And this was the 2000s, 2000 to 2010s. And also that period was very interesting because um, there's the music industry, the mainstream industry, and there's also the music underground, where so I kind of in between. I wasn't mainstream, but I wasn't crusty in the underground scene, but I knew both. And I didn't really want to be in the mainstream side. It was a very conscious decision. I didn't see any value in it or meaning in getting into the mainstream. So that's never been my attention. But I always felt that there's a disconnect. There was this big gulf between the two, and I always wanted to bridge that. Being in the middle was quite important. So you could say that's how I'm in the industry. I still see myself as an outsider, and I think that's a very valuable perspective. When I got into academia as a researcher, really trying to understand things rather than trying to be understood, which is a lot of artists are just obsessed about trying to be understood. And I'm more interested in trying to understand things. So I played in a lot in punk bands, noise rock bands, some really crazy stuff too, in the underground scene. But my main gigging persona was my singer-songwriter folk self, this Dylan-ish guy with a acoustic guitar and harmonica, hair. That's just how I looked. It wasn't created a certain way. I didn't have a manager, self-managed. So I was really a DIY punk run by the ethos, even though on the outwardly I don't look necessarily from that world too much. So just the first few weeks of this when we've had this semi lockdown in Malaysia, you read the news a lot, and songs come to you. And one of the songs that came out was a little ditty called Social Distancing that I did. The melodies of the song was something that I had already. It's always been. I got a bunch of different melodies. Yeah, it's just sometimes when the words and stories come into place, you don't know when that happens. So just so happened, I was playing that riff, and hey, first line in Malay in the song says, "Aku di sini, kau di sana, aku di sini," which is like I'm over here and you're over there. So initially, the song I had envisioned as a love song. But the first two lines really fit this whole like when social distancing became quite a thing now, quite a hashtag. So oh, you're over there, yeah, hey, social distancing, and it rhymes, and it kind of fits into that. So and then I just made up the next few lines. I think within 3 minutes I had that line, and it's a short song because primarily the medium where I was going to release this was going to be on Instagram, and I find that interesting too. I've never taken to social media yet until this moment where I started using. I did concerts on FB Live. I did a fundraiser which within that first week of that, and it was back to back, and it's been a surprisingly bustling period, and I'm encouraged. So yeah, I like that limitation. 1 minute, what can I do? So that song fit in. So the song's really just about reminding people what to do, and it's an instructional song. And there's a lot of instructional songs now. The government, the Ministry of Health is doing one. You can see campaigns on television. You see people making stuff video online. So I just jumped into that because hey, that's what I got. Not about competing with them, but hey, I have my audience, and they might appreciate that because it has a bit of my sensibility to it. So the song is just about social distancing, wash your hands anytime, let's fight COVID, listen to the police, but they're telling you not to go out, don't then just and respect the frontliners, and because they're giving their all for the rest of us. So that's it. Okay, that sounds pretty straightforward and simple.
Kau di sana, aku di sini. Social distancing. Cuci tangan sabun 20 seconds. Kill that bastard COVID. Jangan cakap abang kakak polis. Jangan berkeliaran macam iblis. Respect sama-sama para petugas. Berkeras tulang mereka berkorban tenaga dan masa untuk semua. Kau di sana, aku di sini. Social distancing. Kau di sana, aku di sini. I miss you, darling. Kau di sana, aku di sini. Social distancing. Terima kasih. That's how you say thank you in Malay.